Good here, good here. Welcome, everyone, to the Backpacking Podcast. This is my first intro ever because my co host is not John today. I'm here with Rue McKenrick. Rue, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hey everyone, so glad to be here and joining you.
So, John is under the weather today. He'll be back with us next week, but it is going to be just Rue and I. And Rue, actually, I don't think I could have picked a better person to host the show with today and to get to talk to because I think we have talked. Maybe this is the third time that you've been a guest
Mhm.
on the show. And I think that
Mhm.
you are, I'm pretty sure you have the lead for the most appearances on the show. So, who better to bless us with their presence than you?
Oh, I feel so honored. I feel like you told me at one point in time that they were popular too,
I think
but
that they're
I
pretty
but
popular.
I could have totally made that up. I could have
No,
made that one up.
I don't think that's a false memory. There's a reason why it's so popular, man. The last two times that we've talked, you have really shared a lot about the American Perimeter Trail and your experiences on it. So, if people haven't heard those episodes, can you start by just sharing with everybody what is the American Perimeter Trail and what inspires you to participate in pretty much founding it?
Well, first of all, I go ahead and inspire you to go to, I think it's on Instagram and Facebook, just Rue McKenrick, because I recently, knowing that we were talking, put up two clips from previous interviews.
I saw that.
Just okay, great. I thought they were like something nice to just see how our interaction has been, and but the American Perimeter Trail and I listen back to some stuff. And I don't normally do that, Jeremiah, but I like you guys. And we were talking back in 2020 for the first time. And you had asked me the question of something along the lines of like, what is the concept of the American Perimeter Trail? And I said, thank you so very much for that question, or something along the lines of the word concept was correct at that point in time, but it's becoming less a concept and becoming more of an action. So the American Perimeter Trail, when done, will be 14,000 miles long,
Good Lord.
and and it and I think I'm about 13 in right now. Um, and it will roughly trace the perimeter of the United States, the contiguous United States. And what we seek to do through that is to connect communities, um, land preservation, conservation of natural resources. But this was always from the beginning, more about a metaphorical kind of connection around the United States. And we have that with some highway systems. Okay. Um, but we always knew that we were going to be connecting the backcountry because we're backpackers and that's what we like to do. But that it was going to be one of the main purposes was going to be to connect the communities along those corridors as well. So what you'll find on some long trails is that you have to hitchhike or catch a ride or however you do it in order to resupply because maybe your resupply box or your grocery store is 20 miles away. There'll be plenty of that on the American Perimeter Trail. But one thing that's kind of interesting, I would say, like a representative of this would be something like the North Country Trail, is that you often end up walking from the backcountry right through the town and then right back out into the backcountry. And so uh, the American Perimeter Trail uses existing trails. It uses it basically uses anything that we can find at this point in time that's a public thoroughfare. We have our challenges there. Um, There are places where we will be sharing the footbed with other national scenic trails. I'll give you an example. So, for instance, the Continental Divide Trail, which is a national scenic trail, our route going around the United States actually crosses it twice. And so it does it once in Montana, where we cross the divide. And then also, if you went the whole way around, it also crosses the Continental Divide in New Mexico as well. They have beautiful sections of trail in these areas. Montana, one of them being Glacier National Park and the Bob Marshall Wilderness in that area. And then also in New Mexico, just being able to see the very different contrast from desert to high desert to something, for instance, like the Gila Wilderness and the Gila River. So, in those places, we have an agreement with them to share some of their footbed for, you know, for whatever I decide and what we all come up with, what is the best space to do that. But these are, the Triple Crown is mostly a north and south, or south and north trail system, and the American Perimeter Trail is a counterclockwise or clockwise trail system. So, in doing so, what we hope to do is create a conservation corridor, like I said, that's 14,000 miles around the United States. It's really, for me as a backpacker, that's the way that I'm going to use this space mostly.
Well, I
But
was curious.
yeah.
the So you're wanting to do the perimeter of the U.S., obviously,
Hmm.
hence the name, and
Hmm.
you already have like a West Coast and an East Coast trail that doesn't
Yes.
really go along the coast, but it is
Yes.
still like over there in that region on both sides. And I was curious if it was even possible, or you were tempted to basically, I don't know if this is cheating or what. I don't know the best way to describe it, but if it
Hmm.
were me and I were like water trying to find the easiest path down, I'd be like, okay, let me do East Coast Trail, West Coast Trail, and then I just want to connect those. But you didn't do it that way, right? You have blazed a basically a new trail that sometimes coincides, like you said, with existing trails instead of being like, I'm just going to connect the left and the right side of the US.
Yeah, and so thank you so very much for that, because so I recently just flew in from California. I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm flying back to Oregon. I technically only have 4 days left on the American Perimeter Trail, but it's going to end up probably being a 600 or 700 mile hike for me, because while I'm backpacking, I do work. So while I do work, for me, it's not informative to do something like go hop on the Pacific Crest Trail, because the Pacific Crest Trail, I almost became a two-time PCTer just a couple weeks ago, but I decided that I had some other stuff I had to do here in Pennsylvania, and that trail is 2,700 miles long. I probably have 5,000 and some miles on that trail, so it's not as informative going forth. But I have come of a different mind. The first day on the Pacific Crest Trail, I was basically accosted by a backpacker who saw me and said, "Are you Rue?" And I was like, "Oh," because I'm not used to that, because I've been backpacking by myself now for almost 3 years. So I'm not used to, like, it happens sometimes in towns. Every once in a while it happens, but I wasn't used to being recognized in that way.
Mhm.
And so he basically like read me the riot act, and he said, I think you're an egomaniac, and I think that's why you want to create your own trail, is because you're gatekeeping yourself because of your egomania. I tried to explain to him that I was a conservationist first and a backpacker second. And so that what was really important to me was the conservation piece, not just Jeremiah. If I just want to be a famous backpacker, I, I could have already done this. I spend like no time like promoting myself. We throw something up on social media every once in a while. I do as many talks as I can to talk about the APT, but I mean, like there were much easier things to do besides this that weren't going to be any kind of contribution. They were just going to be a contribution to myself and
What
to
a
my own
great.
and to my own glory. And so I I I mean the Triple Crown, like going and doing it at this point in time compared to the APT, it's like that was easy. And
Sure.
it's not easy, so don't misunderstand me, okay? But if someone said like, do you want to go have a really good exciting time, like do a calendar like Triple Crown or something, or do you want to go have like a very mixed bag of experiences that is probably going to be life threatening and alone and that sort of thing? You know, this has been my choice and this has been the way I've gone about it. I have come to a little bit of a different mind about this because left to my own devices, what I would like to do is to completely kind of like sum this up and then release it 20 years from now. Like that's what I would like to do. And
Wow.
then, and then my friend Nimblewell Nomad,
Mhm.
we talk, we try to talk once a week if we can. And he calls me and, and he's asking me, hey, are you finally ready? And there's app companies that are after this route that I can't mention here because there's contracts and stuff like that. But the point is, he said to me, are you finally ready to surrender to the greater process that this is going to require? And my answer at this point, I think is pretty much yes. So I think I'm going to give you all um, I don't know how long it's going to take for them to produce it on the apps, but I'll pretty much give you guys a way of hiking parts of the American Perimeter Trail, but they're going to be changing just all the time. So the way that that looks now is like the Appalachian Trail, one of my favorite trails on the planet. We've been speaking with the Great Eastern Trail, which is actually closer, which is an organization that's actually closer to the actual route that I took during the APT. It's not near the coast. It's actually further away from the coast or the perimeter than the Appalachian Trail. But there are trail organizations that have failed, and there are many different kind of ideas and movements all around the country where people are calling us and contacting me and saying, "Will you please bring the APT here because we tried this 15 years ago and we we had so much steam coming so hard right away, and then it
Mm.
just fell apart, and the thing never got built." Um, Connecticut is another example of that. So uh, Kentucky, would be an example of some of that, where there are different like trails that need to be connected or areas that we can bring into the public sector into a public easement because the conservation piece is not. I can guarantee you the Appalachian Trail has not. Well, I didn't use the Appalachian Trail, first of all, but
Sure.
let's say like the Pacific Crest Trail, okay? The Pacific Crest Trail Association has not benefited in any way from me using that. Um, Would they benefit in some way if we decided to use that whole footbed as the APT? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, there's this whole idea right now, like Y to Y, which is Yukon to Yellowstone. And it's about making sure that there is this huge natural corridor that's protected. And I mean, that's where you're going to find grizzly bears. I mean, it's it's where it's getting really wild. And so, part of the concept has been conservation through recreation.
So,
There are places that I walk through that don't have a trail, but they're already in the public sector,
uh,
but they are like largely endangered, and so are many of the species that live there
mm.
because it's not humans don't care about it because they don't use it.
So just to paint a little bit of a picture, so completing the American Perimeter Trail, which basically has you out 24/7, blazing trail, deciding what is gonna be included, what's not included, what's on roadway, what goes past or on the footbed of existing
Hmm.
trails.
Hmm.
That that's gonna help enable you to reach a higher purpose of, yes, creating this footpath that takes the perimeter of the continental US, but also you're preserving lands that people aren't thinking enough about. And, honestly, it's it's really easy to trash lands, but it's much harder
Hmm.
to get the native species back and
Hmm.
keep it the way that it should be. So, would you say that's
I
a pretty accurate picture?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I saw a lot of that in areas as far as logging and mining and stuff in West Virginia and Kentucky. And, it wasn't a matter of like, let's put this mine out of business or this timber company. They'd already been gone for a long time. It's just the land was trashed.
Yeah,
It wasn't about like trying to take jobs or like move people into green energy or change their way of life. It had already been trashed. And the thing about trash is, it's if I walk somewhere and throw down a piece of trash somewhere, I'm just using this as an example. And someone else comes by and they throw down a piece of trash, and then someone else throws a piece of trash. Before you know it, everyone's just like, that's where trash goes. You know, like this is where it's been destroyed. So I mean, I saw many clear cuts that the forest was just devastated. That hurt my heart. Now we need timber, okay? There are many streams I couldn't drink out of, and part of that United States, um, the whole way through the Appalachians, really, um, simply because there was a concern of there being heavy metals and such in that water. So I guess, Jeremiah, the thing is, we are going to do what every other long distance trail has done, and that is they have gone and connected and done the best they could, and then they've moved on from there. So this is my life's work. And I think that like sometimes that people think that when I finish in Bend, Oregon this summer, that was it. That was the end of it. And now I just write a book and then I just go and hike more stuff, which is like that's what backpackers do, right?
But
That's
this
what
is
backpackers do. I'm a conservationist, so that's not what I do. Now I finish this, and then I use that kind of like publicity around that to go and preserve more. And so, as far as the Appalachians are concerned, we have wonderful trails there, like the Pine Mountain Trail and the Cumberland Trail and Allegheny Trail. They have huge gaps in between each one of them, which would have been the same for everything. The Appalachian Trail had the Long Trail before the Appalachian existed. They had Shenandoah. They had the trails in the Smokies. They had all the trails like through New England, and they just went through and connected what they could until they could figure out where they needed the trail. So it could be like you walk down a fire road, a quarter mile down this fire road, take a right onto this fire road and a right onto this fire road, and you do that for a day, and then you're back on a trail. That's been the same with the Pacific Crest Trail. It's been the same with the Continental Divide Trail. And so I am more of the mind now of going ahead and releasing a and sharing a route, so we start to give people like somewhere to build off of,
No,
somewhere to start working from, instead of where the heck is this? And it's going to be like, this is where it goes. Some of it is quality, some of it is not quality. I will spend the rest of my lifetime working on those pieces that are just not the quality kind of connectors. Do I know how much of the PCT I'm using yet? I don't know, because I have other ideas. And I get sent new trails and projects every day. And I have a list of like things that I'm working through trying to figure out how to do this. And then as far as the East and the Appalachian Trail, um, we've really kind of built a pretty strong relationship with the Great Eastern Trail, which is still like people hike it, but it's still more of a concept because of these huge connections in between that aren't running into trail. They're throwing you onto a piece of pavement, or you have to cross this bridge and then over this road. Um, so that's the exciting part for me, is the creative process of it.
well,
But I don't want to get in my own way.
well, sure. At some point,
Yeah.
you have to decide that you're going to put it out there, and then you can fill in the pieces. But you have to start somewhere. So that makes me very curious. Let's say we took away some of those variables. Let's say we flash forwarded 20 years from now, and you
Hmm.
have filled in. Let's say that it has went amazingly, and 95% of the trail is through easements or connected trails, or it looks like a real trail that is mostly through the back country, sometimes goes through and you can resupply and stuff. But we are considering this the latest and greatest long distance trail 20 years from now.
Oh man. If you play the Jeremiah, if you hold this against me 20 years from now, we're gonna have a problem, okay, man?
Well, I was
Uh,
curious.
all right, so this is what we're looking at. Okay, I'll try to give like a basic run through. Um, California, there are several trails that are west of the Pacific Crest Trail. This would even maybe take out some of the high country of the High Sierra, which people would say, well, how could you possibly do that without including the Sierra? It's already there. You can go hike it. And it doesn't matter if it says APT or if it says John Muir Trail or if it says Pacific Crest Trail. So more than likely, there's a trail project going on there. So we'll probably go west of there. We'll head down south, maybe coming on and off the PCT because of the water situations. As soon as it gets dry, like you gotta just follow the water. And some of them are man-made water sources where there's wells or something like that. Um, I will. I am thinking about keeping. I am not keeping Death Valley. Okay, so that's over.
That's tough.
That's over. Um, and in fact, I was just in California and did some scouting over towards the Salton Sea, heading east to Arizona. And again, I don't know, like, Death Valley, it's 100 feet below sea level. I was in places around the Salton that were almost 250 feet below sea level, and we're just scorching. And the water is so contaminated
Well, I
that
was going to
there's
say,
not much you can do with it.
some of those
So
areas, you're just basically limited by the infrastructure that's there. Like you can't.
that's it. That's it. And I mean, in time, what you can do is you can go in and build um, areas where there would be potable water. There's something called the Gap Trail in Pennsylvania where they've done that. A lot of cyclists use that, and a lot of hikers use that. Um, one thing that'll be interesting about developing water is in Montana, because we're going to follow the Missouri, but you're not really supposed to drink out of the Missouri. You've got this huge riverway right beside you, and they're asking you not to drink out of it, not because of protozoans, but because of agricultural runoff. But your filter isn't going to do anything for you. You're going to get sick. So I think basically, like, my route, I think we will probably use part of the Arizona Trail. Okay. We'll probably share a footbed there. Going south from there, I was too close to the border. Okay, my friend Bill Gormally, 1975, walked around the United States. Him and I also try to talk once a week. Okay, no one knows him. I mean, no one knows his name, but he was by himself for a while, and he ended up getting married on trail. It's a long story, but they only road walked. And so they stayed mostly to the perimeter. There's places where if we could use the beach, I would be more than happy to do that. It's just that you can't. I mean, the beach is too developed, and it's not like a real backpacking experience I want people to have. So in New Mexico, the trail has to go north from where it is. I was following the border. It was stressful. It wasn't safe. I backpacked down there a lot of times. It was different this time. It felt very much like a militarized zone,
Well,
and
that's
just did not, you know, it wasn't something I want anyone to have an experience. The trail's going to go a lot further north from the border there. Now, when Bill in 1975 hiked in New Mexico there and stuff, there was an easement from like the wall and the border where you were allowed to, it's kind of like a no man's land, like you were allowed to camp there and no one could say anything about it. To say the least, things have changed dramatically, and it's not a safe situation. It's just stressful. It's no fun. You get woke up every night. You get stopped by border patrol. You have people coming through camp. You don't know what they're doing. You've got a bunch of a real serious situation there that needs to be handled in a serious way.
that's
Texas, Texas, I think we want to get into probably Big Bend country. And I had some people actually look into this a year or 2 years ago, I think, almost. And Texas is, besides some of the existing trails that are already there, like the Lone Star Trail, a good part of Texas is going to be rails to trail. So using abandoned rail beds.
that'd be interesting.
Because, yeah, because I don't think there's any other way around it. So, and I think it'll be cool. Anyways, I think it'll be pretty fun, pretty neat. Louisiana and Mississippi is hopping from one national forest to another. So, we got to figure out if we've got a blotch here and a blotch here, and how do we get between them without having to put someone on a dangerous roadway, just to walk from one to the other. And then we'll come over into Alabama. We'll share some of the footbed with the Florida Trail. So we are bringing Florida in. And then the Pinhoti Trail, we've spoke with them extensively. They have had some petitions out recently about not wanting to be part of the Appalachian Trail. We've shared that information. They've asked us to share that. It's not that they don't mind connecting into the Appalachian Trail, because they already do. I've already done that before. There's a way to go up and you take the Bend of Mackay and you can connect into the AT. They just don't want to be the AT,
Yeah, because then
is the petition.
cease to exist, and it's just
It's
Appalachian Trail.
That's it. It would cease. That's right. It would cease to exist. So then I come up the western side. I'm talking with the Great Eastern Trail, and that means that like places that you wouldn't spend much time on the Appalachian Trail, like Kentucky. Well, you wouldn't spend any time in Kentucky. West Virginia, is like a sliver, and you're like you can do it in a day, but instead you'll be in West Virginia for a couple hundred miles. Um, it's just trying to bring something new. We uh, we talk a lot about how, or maybe not, just in general, you've heard about places being loved to death,
What
and loved to death, in other words, like such a beautiful and amazing area that it just gets overused.
like McAfee
You know,
knob or something like that.
that McAfee knob would maybe in Virginia would be a possible example of something just getting loved to death. And so, part of our mission is to not bring more people there, but to have people have another option.
Well, it's just so hard now with like some people are very anal about the geotagging and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff because
Mm-hmm.
that it can result in exactly what you just said with the love to
Mm-hmm.
death. That's a good way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard in today's day and age because of social media, and everybody is so eager to share everything about their life. I find it kind of scary personally. I mean, I know
Mm.
that we've talked in the past about how, basically some of the people in your organization are like, look, Rue, you have to document some of this journey, start posting some stuff on social media.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's just where the world is. And to bring awareness to things, that is like one of the main avenues. But I feel like if whenever you post to social media, anything, you have to make a sacrifice, and a lot of times that sacrifice is private,
Mm.
and that can end
Mm-hmm.
up to, like you said, loving to death, but also it's a delicate balance because you also want to bring awareness to issues, but it's give and take. So it's always hard, you know?
It's always hard, and that's like that's my question about when the app companies that are asking us to put this stuff out. Like some of it's like I don't know. I get different information. I get information that like no one's really going to be using or hiking this much anyways. It's going to be more for the person who wants to go out of their way. I mean, if you follow the Appalachian Trail, there's 1,000 trails all there,
Mhm.
but everyone is on the AT. I'm not just talking about through hikers. I'm talking about day hikers. You know, everybody wants to be on that trail. So I don't know. I think maybe there's a question there as to whether or not how much impact we would have or not. But uh, a concept of maybe trying to spread it out
No, I'm with you.
is
I
is
think
is an idea, and I've heard people tell me, what, Rue, that is the biggest pile of horse manure I've ever heard. You're not going to spread out anything. You're not going to, you're not going to help this situation. If people want to hike the AT, they'll go hike the AT. They're not going to care about the American Perimeter Trail and stuff. I don't do real well with naysayers, so I tend to like just hear that stuff. I reflect upon it, and then I go forward based on what my sense is.
well,
Because there is no data. It's not like we don't have the data and the information as to what this is going to ultimately affect, or how this is going to affect the future. Like we were talking 20 years from now, you know?
yeah, who knows about 100 years from now? Like
Right,
the A
right.
the AT could be overran in 100
Mm-hmm,
years, or it could
mm-hmm,
be almost nobody backpacks it, or it could be about the same amount of foot traffic that it has
mm-hmm,
now. And the American Perimeter Trail 100 years from now
mm-hmm.
could be the new AT, or it could
Mhm.
be the solo man's journey that you want to take and get away from. I mean, it's a different. I don't know if you can necessarily say it's a different culture, but you're definitely going to experience a ton of different cultures no matter which long trail you do. But the American Perimeter Trail, you have to think like AT is all East Coast. So no matter what, you're on you're on the eastern region of the US, and that is quite different than the West Coast or the Western region or the Mexican border or the North Country Trail area, like the cultures
Mhm.
of the people in all those different areas. But who knows 100 years from now what it's going to look like because you can't predict it. There's no data for it.
We don't know. I mean, I could say something like very controversial. Oh, well, 100 years from now, people won't even backpack. They'll just be on like machines that
Like VR.
show and take, like what?
Oh, I was thinking like virtual reality, but it could be you're not
Oh,
even.
whoa, no. Oh, I wasn't going there, but yeah, that's another point. It's like uh people are, online every day, and that's how they through hike the Appalachian Trail, is they do it virtually. I was thinking more like quads, like on machines and stuff. But you're exactly right. That could be um we don't know where it's heading. But
So
what hmm
whenever you drop the route, the preliminary route here
yeah,
in
yeah,
the next little while, I assume
yeah.
that it's gonna start on its GPS data. So, like, I
hmm
assume you're gonna partner with an app or something along those lines, and then you'll
hmm
drop it on there. But
hmm
at what point do you start painting blazes on trees or putting signs up, or do you foresee that happening within your, I guess, backpacking career lifetime?
I some of the projects, it's just going to be, sometimes some of it's going to be slow and some of it's going to be fast. Okay. I've got a project in Nevada over into Montana. I think that one's going to start going pretty fast. It's a lot. I mean, gosh, I don't even know if it's 15 or 1600 mile. I mean, it's a lot. My feeling is that one's probably going to go pretty fast. We're painting blazes, we're getting things connected and getting them done.
So,
But my other thing is always like, with Texas, I've been like, that's going to take my entire lifetime. But I could be wrong. But I could be absolutely wrong about that. Jeremiah, I need to, like, just for me, I've been on this personal mission. I started this by myself. There was no board of directors or executive board. There was no memberships or what we call builders. There was no organization. There was none of that. It was me with a couple $100 and a dream and some old gear. Okay. That's where I started. And that's where I'm finishing here in a couple weeks. And there has been a lot of things, and I realize this more when I'm away, that just don't happen or don't get done when I'm on trail. It's not that I'm neglectful, it's just that I'm the executive. And so, like, even I was just in California, I flew back here, and I sat at a computer for like uh, days, like all day for days, because there was so much admin work, so much administrative work that I had to do for the conference, that I didn't even realize. I just didn't realize it was that much while I was out there, but it was pressuring me because while I was out there, I kept on thinking like, there's other work to do here. So when I finish, my hope is that I'm going to be able to share it with you folks and have some like more solid answers about how we think this is going to go over. I mean, my guess is uh, My guess is we're probably going to be working extensively with the Great Eastern Trail. We're going to be using several parts of the Florida Trail. Um, Louisiana, Louisiana and Mississippi are completely my routes. Most of Texas is completely in my routes. I mean, we don't have a plan there. But I think what you're going to see 20 years from now is a continuous trail that is going to be mostly off roads, except for places where there's a difficulty with connection or bridges. I mean, the AT, all the trails run in the same thing. If there's a big, huge river there, and you got to get your hikers across it, they have to walk a road bridge. You know, that's just the way it is. But I can remember you saying before about how much you disliked road walking and how, you know, that wasn't your favorite thing to do. I know backpackers, I won't use their names here, that don't mind it at all. They're totally fine with it. For me, honestly, it became a very different. I never really, I wouldn't say I disliked or didn't like the road walking. I was okay. I was out there for a long time, so it was just a way of life. But it's certainly, you know, this past summer, uh, I mean, I've been biking and walking, commuting for 12 years now. I haven't owned a car. That's where I've gotten everywhere, all through the winter, the whole thing, skiing, however it's worked out. That's what I've been doing. And my older brother was very much the same way.
That is so.
And and he, you know, I've been hit several times, usually on a bike. I've been hit twice walking.
Wow. Tell me about getting hit. What happened?
Um, well, as far as like, um, one gentleman just ran a stop sign. So that was it. He just ran a stop sign and nothing happened. I, I was sore. I was hurting. Okay. Today I would have called the police and been like, okay, I at least need to get checked out and stuff. That
Mhm.
point in time, I just like I busted the front of his Subaru so bad that I was like, all right, we're even. Like,
Don't worry.
not that I did it on purpose, but like my body like crushed his entire hood and everything. And I was like, all right, we're even. I wouldn't do that nowadays. That was a bad day. Um, and then as far as the cycling, I've been hit a couple times, and then uh, and I haven't had anyone stop and help me out. But people love to tell me those stories all the time. They're always like, "Oh my God, 10 years ago, I got hit by this car. It was their fault. Oh man, I got a little bit of money out of it, but at that time in Oregon, you could buy a little piece of land, and that's kind of where I got my start and like opened a business." And I'm like, all I got was like laying on the side of the rope, bleeding with broken bones. So, you know, like I remember the one guy, he stopped and he just looked down out of his window and he gave me a thumbs up, like, "Are you breathing?" You know, it was just basically like, "Hey, thumbs up." And I like looked up at him like, huh? He drove. He's out of there.
That is
That was enough for him. He was like, he's still breathing. I'm out.
what a weird, what some weird morals there. Because typically that kind of person, they usually either don't have insurance or don't have a driver's license or they're intoxicated.
I
Because
think he sounded like he had something to hide because I think he was, yeah, he had something to hide.
a lot
So,
of times a lot of times there's a warrant out. You call the cops, all of a
hmm
sudden, that person's going to jail.
yeah, he had to get out of there for one way for one reason or another. But so I mean, uh, and it was rough because I had it, this is gonna sound crazy. I had just recovered from breaking my wrist and my elbow and my arm, and I'd only been back on my bicycle for maybe 2 or 3 days because I couldn't hold myself up when that happened. So I did the exact same thing. Like when I got hit, I caught myself going down with my
Uh,
hand, and it just rebroke the rest of it. It rebroke the elbow, the whole thing, you know.
how'd you
And
how'd you do it the first time?
oh, first time, I just want to say that was absolutely my fault. Well, I don't know, like fault, whatever. I wasn't jumping, like trying to do anything crazy or whatever. I was on a road bike and I was going over some really like rough terrain, and it was like bouncing me around, and there were potholes and stuff, and I hadn't been on that before, especially on a road bike, and it just threw me off. And I put my hand down, and then it just broke everything through there. And so, I was working, it was during the summer. I was just working like a seasonal job that was labor intensive with like no benefits or anything. So I was out of work.
Yeah.
It was like I cannot like move this thing. So I just called my friends and said, "Hey, are you all still going to hike the John Muir Trail?" And they said, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I said, "Okay, cool. Can you guys pick me up tomorrow? Because I want to go through hike it." I had already hiked it a couple times. Was like, I'm gonna go through hike it because I've broken like all these bones, and like I can't do anything. So I might as well go like backpacking. And I had some savings, like not much. Like I had like $600 or something like that. So they were like, "Yeah, that's fine." Okay. Because they had been asking for me to come with them for like a year. And I was like, "Nah, I'm busy during the summer. I got stuff to do, bills to pay, and that sort of thing." And they said, "That's fine, but we're leaving in an hour."
Goodness.
So I got my permit because back in the day you could do that. Well, I knew some people, so I called in, got my permit, and went and hiked the John Muir Trail.
You're the only person I know that's like, well, I'm gonna be laid up a little while from work, so I guess my backup plan is to go backpacking for a month and let myself rest and recover.
And that's what I did, and it worked. I mean, there was a moment there. Okay, I didn't sleep the entire trip because I just could not get comfortable with that thing one way or the other. Like it was waking me up all night, but that was okay. Um, I guess like this, there was probably like the second day where I slipped on a rock and I put my hand down to like catch myself, and I just really did not recover from that for a little while. But other than that, I mean, I think it was pretty much okay. The worst part actually, it's gonna sound strange, but the worst part was packing up in the morning
Oh, I
because I would
bet.
have to like just packing a sleeping bag into a stuff sack was like excruciating. Where I was trying to figure out ways to like tie it onto a tree, like a cinch cord or whatever, and
Uh,
then like try to pack it in with my foot and stuff. Packing the tent and the sleeping bag and like packing my stuff was actually like it was probably the worst part of my day.
I
Every morning was just like I can't do this.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, whenever you're sticking a sleeping bag, all that down into one of those stuff sacks, you are like holding on with a death grip with your offhand, and then
Right.
like as hard as you can, pushing
Mhm.
all this down and compressing it into a sack. I'd say that really sucked. Were you tenting at the time too, or were you hammocking?
I was tarping.
Oh, you're
I
tarp
was
kid.
tarping. I was
That
tarping. So that was a little better. That was a little bit. That was probably the easiest, I guess. I don't know. Tent might have been easier. I don't know. But I was tarping. I so I was able to go do that, and I'm really glad I came back broke. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have a job. Like, but it all worked out, and it worked out perfectly, and it was okay. What I wanted to say though is, my relationship um, with road walking, um, I never really had a problem with it, or it didn't make any difference to me. But I was dedicated on APT to like making sure there was like no roads. Okay. And so that's what's coming in the future. Um, Nimble Nomad's gonna disagree with me. He's gonna go, come on, it's great walking road sometimes. Um, so my brother, who also was a bike and walking commuter, while I was out on trail crossing into Montana, I got the phone call that was, you need to get on a plane now. And I always know what that means. And
Mm-hmm.
over the last 20 years, there's been there's been enough of those. You know, like I almost know from the first minute when it's like, "Hey, Rue," it's like I know what's coming. The next sentence is going to be, "You need to get on a plane now." So, so my brother was walking, his favorite thing to do. As he was getting older, he wasn't as much into the cycling. He had some like coordination issues.
Mm-hmm.
But his favorite thing to do was walk, and we call him like Michael's Adventures or whatever, because he'd just be gone. He's like me. He would just be gone for a whole day, just walking. Like no one knew where he was or cared because they knew he was fine. And just like, oh, what'd you do today, Mike? And he'd be like, well, I walked down over, I mean, just random places. Uh, and he was hit by a car um, while I was on the APT here. So um, I did my best to try to make it back before they took him off of life support. I didn't make it back in time. I did make it back in time for the funeral. I'm telling you this because, like, I haven't even been able to speak about this. I didn't take interviews after that happened this past summer. I didn't take interviews for like 5 or 6 months. And when I finally did, it was with Papa Bear Hikes. And I cried like the first 10 minutes of the interview. I just was not ready to be able to speak about. I didn't know how to talk about it. And then I probably should have called it right there and then. That should have probably been the end of the trip. Not the end of the trip, but a like respite, you
Yeah,
know.
like a hiatus.
hmm Yeah, exactly. And that's not what I decided to do. I had several friends who died while I've been on this trek. I have no idea why. I've never had this much loss in my entire life. And the last 2.5 years to 3 years have been over the top. The number of close people, not over the top, but it's just been a lot of people. I'm okay because I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the time that I've had with them. Also, like this has not been my whole life story. I'm getting I'm just getting an extra share of it right now. Our life has these seasons, and this is one of the seasons right now. And with my other friends and stuff that had happened, I use that as inspiration to go on and to like do this for them, you know?
Sure.
Like this is for you.
Do you think what
Sure.
happened with your brother, does that help push you toward ensuring as much backcountry walking and keeping things off the roads to help keep people safe? Do you feel like that plays a part in it?
Oh, I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that. I thought you were going to ask me, do I feel inspired and such by this? Because I do not. I left and went back out there by myself for a couple more months,
Mhm.
and there was nothing inspiring about it. It was just it just was a struggle.
Yeah,
Um,
being alone.
but just specifically to like the question you just asked, absolutely,
Yeah, 'cause
absolutely.
really dangerous aspect when it comes to backpacking, honestly. The road walking, especially, if you're hitchhiking and you're walking on the right side of the road and people are passing
Hmm.
on the right, like
Hmm.
you can't see that coming. You're just walking straight and you got your thumb out.
Hmm. Hmm. And I can't tell you, I mean, even this summer, Jeremiah, I can't tell you how many times I've had to resupply and I've gotten over on the other side of the road and I've had someone stop and say, "Hey, people would pick you up better if you were over on the other side of the road." And I was like, "You can do that, but certain roads, you can't." Yeah, they're going to pick me up because we're taking a trip to the hospital. You know,
One of my
like
fa
I can stick my thumb up and point in that direction. I
uh
mean, I had so many people that were like, "You're just confusing people. Like, you need to be on the other side of the road so they know which direction you're going." And I'm like, the other side of the road is. uh, why would I do that? Why would I do that to someone? I mean, I
yeah,
can't even imagine what those people felt like that hit my brother. I can't imagine.
well, it changes everybody's world that is involved
Everybody,
close to that situation.
everybody, everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't feel any malice in my heart there. Um, you know, but I really appreciate that question, Jeremiah, because I think that I was a lot more cavalier about the situation. I didn't mind road walking. I would do it or whatever. But I mean, I yeah, I just found myself more and more situations where I don't know. Even if I had service and someone contacted me and was like, "Oh, you got to listen to this podcast. Whatever. They're talking about the APT or something.
Mm,
I was like, I can't do it, man. I got to walk this road today. Like,
yes.
I gotta be focused, man. The thought of my mother losing two of her sons in the same summer from something like that was um
It's unthinkable.
e- is unthinkable. It's
Yeah.
unthinkable. So so I really appreciate that question, and road walking isn't bad, but there are places. And I'm not going to mention them right now because I don't want to put anyone down, but there are trails in this country where they've gone and just blazed uh, telephone pole after telephone pole.
Mm,
And they're just like windy main roads. And you can't see any of the corners. And I would have moments where I was like, when that person was applying that paint to that telephone pole, weren't they also kind of looking behind their back at the same time? And didn't that make them pause to think this is a really bad idea? It's a really
well,
bad
it goes
idea.
to show how much how much thought goes into the way that you are positioning this trail. And there's so many, like, I didn't even that didn't even pop into my head, whenever I'm road walking, um,
Mhm.
the true dangers that can happen, and it may not either to those people that are blazing the trail, but I'm happy that for your trail, there's so many factors that you're thinking about that we as just the average person, because you have so much more experience. There's things that you are thinking about that never crosses half of the other people's minds.
I appreciate that, and Jeremiah, that's part of the reason why it's been so important for me to be so so directly, physically involved with this,
Oh yeah, you're
because
great.
I could have built this from the couch on a computer, and I haven't done that because there are certain things that I needed to see. There is a lot of information that I have that sitting at home on the computer and mapping something out would have made perfect sense. And I mean, I already had that happen this summer, and I got out there, and the reality was way different. I care. Like I do care. I don't want anyone getting hurt. That's like when people ask me for my Death Valley route, I won't tell them. They'll have to figure that out if that's something they want to do. But there are just like there are just so many times the information was given to me from being there directly on the ground. And that's why I think you're going to see me the next year or two. You're going to see me going back through the APT. Now, I don't have any interest in hiking that again. I'd like to have some sort of life, maybe at some point, like friends, um, a home, or not. Like when I say home, I'm not trying to be extravagant. Just sleep in the same bed every night. Just kind of like have a kitchen to cook some good meals in, and like very simple things like that. But I will probably go back through. I will go back through the APT, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it like in a van or like a Sprinter van or something like that. And as I go back through, I'll give talks. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I wasn't able to meet a lot of people that I wanted to meet.
Sure.
I mean, I'll give you an example of the North Country Trail Association in Lowell, Michigan. Trail goes right past their office. They've been closed down for months. They close their office. There's no one to get on the phone. It's just and even the people that live there, it's not like you can call them and during that time just be like, hey, well, what's up? I'm in town. Can I just come stay at your place tonight or whatever? We'll have dinner. And they're like, well, it is a pandemic, Rue.
Yeah, it's a
And,
different world.
and, and you've been traveling. So,
Yeah.
you know, so I really look forward to going back and doing some of that. And my vision of it is that people are going to be joining me during that. So I'll extend the invitation to you directly, Jeremiah. If you want to hop in the van with me for a week and go see a part of the country that you've never seen, or something that you're familiar with that you think I really should see, like, hey, Rue, this really is probably where we need to be taking the APT. I would love that. So we'll see if that's what comes up this year. But first things first, I finish the APT. Like I said, I technically only have 4 days left to close the loop, but I'll probably end up going about 600 or 700 miles through Oregon and Washington. And then I will finish at exactly where I started in 2019, which is just this like plaza downtown Bend, Oregon. There's a big like stone feature implanted into the brick and everything there that says Bend, and it's in a big circle. Bend being my hometown, and that's where I started, and that is where I'm going to finish when I hit that. And I just hope that like, if people are out that way or you need an excuse to go on vacation, Oregon is beautiful. And we will have we'll have vendors and music, and it'll be a big celebration. Uh National media, the whole thing. Not because I may have to move out of Bend after that because I don't like because I've always been like a private person, so I don't necessarily like that, but it's really important for the conference that we don't I mean we're not the people that have a lot of money. We we come up we're more creative. We come up with creative solutions. And I think there is one more thing that I wanted to share with you.
Sure.
Alex Meyer, a gentleman who's done several backpacking documentaries and a long distance backpacker himself, will be compiling footage that I've taken, pictures and stuff of the trip, and then preliminary at this point is for him to join me at the end because he can backpack. So to join me at the very end, walking in to the finish line. And again, this is for posterity's sake. I wish Benton Mackay, from the Appalachian Trail. I wish
Mm.
Clinton C. Clark from, the Pacific Crest Trail. I wish all these guys would have been able to like maybe capture what was going on, like what was really going on.
Yeah.
Because we have all these descriptions and written, and they're interesting and they're personal. You would think like when I first started getting into like the AT papers and stuff when I was whatever 17, 18, I was like, oh, this is just a bunch of bureaucratic bullshit. And then I learned more and more like, no, the people are still people. And I'm not saying it's a soap opera or that I'm like really interested in drama. What I'm saying is there's a lot more there than meets the eye. A lot more.
Yeah, so if we could
Yeah.
have had a firsthand account, video and audio of them doing their whole trail experience and
I would
blazing,
love that.
oh, it'd be so
Yeah.
interesting. So we're gonna
I,
get some of that with you.
you're going to get something like that with me. And my other fantasy that I had from the time I was 20 is so originally the Conservancy, the Appalachian Trail was the Appalachian Trail uh, Conference. And the Pacific Crest Trail was the Pacific Crest Trail Conference.
Mhm.
And they actually had physical conferences, which we are going to be doing in the next year, probably in a year. And that was a place where people, the AT conference was held in Washington D.C. And this is where place people came and were actually able to give their personal input, take votes even, and decide how was this going to work and what was it going to look like. We will be doing that, and that's why we may not be called the American Perimeter Trail Conference in the future. But until we have the conference, that's why we have that name specifically. So, I'm thinking that's going to be like a wonderful opportunity for people to get together and for backpackers to get together and then be able to give their input into this is what I think the APT should look like. When I decided to hand this over to the public, which is basically when I made it a nonprofit, I let go of all my rights.
Mhm.
I knew that. I didn't like it. I knew what I was doing because I've been thinking about it for years. And I always knew when it happened, I was going to be like, oh, man, but I think I have the right answer. and these other, 10 people don't, but they're out voting me. Oh, you know, but in democratizing this community and stuff, you know, I know deep in my heart that I don't know everything. And I know a lot about the APT, but there's plenty of people out there that locally and their different regions know a lot more about this than I do. So it's just like there's some exciting stuff coming up. Like I said, for instance, the documentary, the conference, the finishing of the APT, and then I either need to go rest and sit in an office, sit in an office for a couple months, or I don't know. I do that for a month or so, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here. And then I'm
Well,
back on the, and then I'm back on the, then I'm back on the APT, going back and speaking with all those organizations and land management organizations.
can't resist,
Um,
man. Can't resist spending the time out on trail. But it's been super fun over the last few years seeing it grow and finally seeing some of the light toward the end of the tunnel, even though it's a
mm.
lifelong process, getting to follow along with, on the journey with you. It's been a pleasure. Where can other people uh, keep following along with this journey? Where can they
Great. So great. So I mean, this is what we're. I just got in from, like I said, I just came off the Pacific Crest Trail and doing routes out
Mhm.
there. So I'm in Pennsylvania, and then I got to fly back. So I'm like doing this day by day, um, trying to figure out what is the best way in which to contact us. Here's the thing: the American Perimeter Trail has a Instagram and a Facebook. You can always find us there. I have a personal Instagram and Facebook. It tends to be very heavy on the American Perimeter Trail side, but it is my personal, so I can post anything there. But I usually, like, I posted something about Mr. Rogers the other day. I think that's the first time I haven't talked about the APT in probably a year. No, just
That's
to
okay.
honor just to honor him as a cool guy. That's all. Uh, but So you can find us on all social media, either American Perimeter Trail or Rue McKenrick. I don't use any handles. It's just my name, Rue McKenrick. And then besides that, this is where I don't want it to get confusing. So I'm going to try.
Okay. Okay.
If you go to www.americanperimetertrail.org, that is a nonprofit 501c3. People can go on there and become builders, or what we call members. They can go on there and create their own profiles and talk with each other just like you would on Facebook. Put your pictures up, whatever you need to do there. Um, and that's annually, that's $35. And then I was trying to figure out how to make it free, or at least sponsor people. And I couldn't figure it out. So the best thing we came up with was $6 every 2 months if you can manage that. So if you want to be a builder, then you can come on to that's the nonprofit, and that's tax deductible. If you want to give more than $35, I'm not going to fight you on that. And there's a way to do that. Or if you'd like to buy a membership, that's great. You get some other benefits with that, and it'll explain on there like what are the benefits of membership. Besides that, there is a way to go to that website, same website, and support what we're doing. And I don't know why, but some people just aren't as interested in, like, as much as the conservation piece or being part of the community. They just want to give money because they just want to make sure that I finish.
Mhm.
Because like all the money that comes into the conference that doesn't go towards my backpacking. So that might be like a big misunderstanding. Like if I need money for something, I have to like I have to go to the executive board and ask for it. So it's not like we make $5,000 this week in membership or in buildership. And then I'm like, all right, like there's money for my trip. That is not the way it works.
Yeah, it's authentic.
It's a nonprofit. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was just saying it's an authentic nonprofit.
It's an authentic nonprofit. There is a way to go on there, and if you just want to give money, and I don't know why some people just want to do that because they want to make sure that the money doesn't get spent on anything besides just specifically making sure that I can eat and clothes or whatever to finish the APT. Now, the third thing is we have started kickstarting to pay Alex for his work
Oh, the documentary.
with the documentary. So what we decided there, he's done it a couple different ways and other times. So we're trying this way because it seemed like to him and his fellow producer that this was going to make more sense. And that is a GoFundMe. And it's just American Perimeter Trail documentary. That's it. So
Well,
if you want to support there, but other than that, I mean, just check in with me every once in a while if you want to. I mean, not just you, Jeremiah, but you guys can send me messages. I do the best I can. I'm not always the best at it. I try to post stuff up there for you guys often so that you can share in the experience. I do really well at it sometimes, other times not as much. I really hope that this summer, and in finishing this, that I can bring you guys into the fold as much as possible. I guess I I just anyways, that's what I hope to have happen. And if anything changes, I'll let you know. So
I think we're on the right track.
mm.
I've had a fun time talking to you, man. I'm sure that we'll have you back on.
It's always great speaking with you. Yeah. How about when I finish this thing, talk in August or something?
Sounds like a good time. All right,
You
folks.
know,
What's that?
yeah, I was gonna say like, and I've only shared like half of what, not even half. I've shared like this much of what's happened, really what's happened. And so, yeah, if you want to talk in August or September, man, life is happening fast out here.
Awesome. Let's do it. Hopefully everybody else enjoyed too. And I guess we'll see you on the next one. Adios, folks.
Yes.